This is Valerie Quoma, and I am doing my presentation on the management strategy, nonprofit advocacy and lobbying. Before we can get into the details of advocacy and lobbying, we need to go over some important definitions. Marcia Avener's definition of advocacy is the general support for an idea or issue. There are different forms of advocacy, including the following. The first is grassroots organizing, and this occurs when people share their efforts to collectively work toward the changes they seek on a particular issue. Second, there's media advocacy, and that occurs when a nonprofit uses the media to positively convey messages about its organization and its causes to a target audience. Third, there's direct lobbying, and that takes place when a nonprofit asks an elected official to adopt a particular position on a specific piece of legislation. For this assignment, I'm going to focus primarily on direct lobbying. Many nonprofits engage in lobbying, but at the same time, many do not. And there are 3 reasons why nonprofit organizations claim they don't lobby. The first is that some nonprofit organizations perceive lobbying as sleazy. Second, some nonprofit organizations think that lobbying will get them into trouble with the IRS. And by trouble, I mean losing their tax-exempt status. Finally, some nonprofit organizations think they do not have the resources needed to lobby. While all of these reasons make sense, they should not prevent an organization from lobbying. Instead of looking at lobbying as sleazy, nonprofit organizations need to perceive lobbying more as an opportunity to educate lawmakers about issues that are important to the nonprofit organization. And there's definitely nothing sleazy about educating people. Lobbying will not necessarily get a nonprofit organization in trouble with the IRS. What lobbying, the IRS's limitation is basically on political campaign activities. But nonprofit organizations can engage in lobbying and not lose their tax-exempt status. In fact, there's no limitation on volunteer lobbying, and the IRS establishes general limitations on the amount of money an organization can spend on lobbying. If the organization spends this amount of money, any more money it spends on lobbying will result in a tax being placed on the activities, a political activities tax. Nonprofit organizations often think they do not have the resources that it will take to lobby. They believe that they have a hard enough time meeting their program needs and providing direct services to clients without taking on the law of the land. The deal is, it's not really a waste of money, because even if nonprofit organizations do not necessarily get their way, because lobbying increases the amount of attention that a nonprofit organization gets. So a nonprofit organization that raises its profiles among donors, lawmakers, and the media are more likely to receive donations. It may actually increase the organization's revenue. I've included several reasons why nonprofits should lobby. The first, like I said, is that nonprofits will not look at lobbying as educating elected officials. Second, nonprofits will not lose their tax-exempt status. And third, nonprofits should realize that dedicating resources to lobbying is not a waste of resources. I've included best practices. The first is that a nonprofit organization must decide to lobby. Second, the nonprofit organization needs to learn about any laws that govern lobbying so that the organization does not inadvertently break those laws. Third, a nonprofit organization must make a plan. By making a plan, I mean that lobbying must become part of the organization's strategic plan for the future. The organization needs to decide whether it's going to engage in lobbying for a short term or long term. It also should set up the goal that it intends to achieve. The nonprofit organizations should build capacity, determine what clients need and what it's able to do. The nonprofit should strengthen its knowledge base by gathering research and finding people who have factual stories to share. The nonprofit needs to identify areas of change, and you can do so by conducting internet-based information about how policies and budgets progress through a policy process. This will save the nonprofit time because it can easily contact only lawmakers who deal with the issues of concern to the organization. The nonprofit should identify potential partners. It should ask itself, who else, as far as organizations are concerned, who else is possibly interested in this issue? And if so, then the organization should identify the organizations and form coalitions with them. It's important for a nonprofit to analyze the opposition because to adequately formulate its position. And the nonprofit needs to develop the necessary skills. Nonprofit organizations must be trained to effectively lobby. I believe these are definitely the best practices. In order to implement lobbying techniques, a nonprofit must identify elected officials who can be influenced and learn what you can about them. They should make it a point to create a working relationship with elected officials as soon as they possibly can. It's crucial that nonprofit organizations determine exactly which elected officials support the organization's position and work with them. The nonprofit should provide information to the elected official and his or her staff. They should ask the elected official to support the organization's position. And no matter what the elected official says, it is important that the nonprofit immediately respond to his answer, or her answer. I have included a nonprofit organization that lobbies successfully. Mothers Against Drug Driving, or MAD, has reaped the benefits of lobbying, specifically or particularly with statutory changes. 4 of these statutory changes are as follows: the Federal 21 Minimum Drinking Age Act, the Omnibus Anti-Drug Abuse Act, the Federal Zero Tolerance Act, and the Transportation Employee Test Safety Act. There are limitations, though, to advocacy that it's important that we discuss. First, lobbying does not help clients or customers who presently need client services. However, any changes that might be made might prevent the clients or customers from needing those same resources and same services in the future. Second, lobbying uses a nonprofit organization's resources that could otherwise have been used to provide direct services to clients and customers. In conclusion, more and more nonprofits recognize that the combination of knowledge, community involvement, and a broad base of support position this sector to lead the way in shaping policy strategies that address our local, state, and national problems in sound and responsible ways. And here are the resources that I used for this presentation. Thank you.